Hey, what the hell is this haircut? What's up? It's the Culture Detective here investigating your favorite albums, and today I'm going to be doing an album review on the new Jack White album, Entering Heaven Alive. So, Jack White is a rock singer, songwriter, producer, and he needs no introduction because he's been making waves ever since the 2000s as one half of the White Stripes. And then he gone on to make solo albums, but those solo albums are nothing all that special until we have albums like Boarding House Reach, where Jack White seems to have redefined his genre and his style and made something really interesting and experimental and weird. And this trend is followed on the album Fear of the Dawn, which is released earlier this year. But lo and behold, Jack White is releasing a second album this year, two albums in a row. And on top of that, this is also his first solo album in which the album cover doesn't feature any blue. Because if you look at the past albums that Jack White has released, all of those albums are blue in color. They're all blue, but for some reason, this new album here, Entering Heaven Alive, is a black and white album cover. So, what the heck is going on? In fact, Jack White is pretty much not in his rocky wheelhouse on this album. Surely, a lot of the tracks off of this album are still rock, they're still alternative rock, but unlike Fear of the Dawn, this is anything but aggressive, explosive, interesting, or experimental. Jack White basically tuned down on this album and pumped out a lot of acoustic ballads and mostly love songs. And that's also mainly because Jack White is gonna be marrying someone, so I guess thus the love songs. So the album starts off with a tip from you to me, and right off the bat, it is actually quite fantastic. We have a country folkish track with some bittersweet chords, plunky pianos, the vocals are strong, and the song is legitimately good. It sounds good. But then we are hit with about 4 to 5 to 6 tracks that are kind of duds and kind of forgettable. The track all along the way is very sluggish in terms of pacing, the guitars are tedious, the track is really stripped back and thus very bland. The organ rock in the second half of the track is really cool, but overall the track just comes off very boring. Then we have Help Me Along. The strings and the pianos are really nice and pretty, but the instrumentals end up sounding really cartoony. And again, it is really stripped back and it ends up sounding really forgettable because emotionally it just doesn't have that much weight to it. The track Love is Selfish features some pretty fantastic lyrics about love, about how love is selfish, but the instrumentals are really weak, and for some reason the vocals sound like they're being recorded in a different studio because they just sound different in terms of quality. And then that is followed with I've Got You Surrounded with My Love, which is basically a loose jam and it's just alright. It's got some nice guitar playing, but overall it just sounds like a filler track. And the track Queen of the Bees features some of the silliest lyrics you can find on this album, and the vocals are also not that great. Instrumentally, it sounds like an old-timey saloon song, especially with the bong, 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 bong rhythm, which is an aesthetic, I have to admit, but that aesthetic isn't committed all that well or anything. And we also have the track A Tree on Fire from Within, which also has some nice lyrics and some nice regal pianos, but overall it's just nothing all that special. However, the second half of the album is actually not that bad. That is followed with If I Die Tomorrow, which is a pretty plain and simple ballad, but what I like about this track is that it takes on a sadder direction, not only lyrically but also instrumentally. This track just sounds kind of forlorn, especially with the weepy woodwinds mixed into the track. The next track is Please God, Don't Tell Anyone, and it is a pretty simple piano driven track, and even though it's nothing all that special, I think this is definitely one of the more instrumentally focused tracks on the album. The second to last track, A Madman from Manhattan, is basically an acoustic rock track with some talk sung verses, which sounds like It came out of the mid-2000s. And yeah, it does sound a little dated, but I think it still sounds really lovely and relaxing. Finally, the album ends off on Taking Me Back Gently, which is a Wild West country guitar groover. The vocals are mixed in a way. The track sounds like it came out of the 40s or the 50s, and honestly, it sounds kind of good. It sounds kind of interesting, and it is a pretty nice, sweet ending to the album. But yeah, overall, while there are some good tracks on the album, I think this is definitely one of the weaker albums Jack White has put out, and a good chunk of the first half of the album is passable and forgettable. So yeah, my favorite track here is the opener. Least favorite is Queen of the Bees, probably. I'm giving Jack White's Entering Heaven Alive a light 6 out of 10. So, if you listen to the latest Jack White album from 1 to 10, I would rate it, like it, and subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching. Maybe I'll be reviewing Joey Badass tomorrow. Maybe not. I don't know.